Hey everyone, this is Shayna from wordofmouth.org, and I'm here with wordofmouth.org crash course speaker, Rob Fuggetta. Rob, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. The book is called Brand Advocates, Turning Enthusiastic Customers into a Powerful Marketing Force. The book really is all about two things, really. Number one, it's about brand advocates. These are enthusiastic customers who go out of their way to recommend the brands and products that they love without being paid. You know, these are authentic advocates, not customers who've been paid or incented to recommend brands. These are people who recommend brands and products because they've had a great experience with the brand or product or company, and they'd want to share that experience authentically with their friends, online and offline. So that's the first thing the book is about. It's all about these brand advocates, you know, who they are, what makes them tick, why they recommend brands and products. Now, the second thing the book is about marketers who are leveraging the power of brand advocates to deliver and generate really eye-popping marketing results. In effect, what these marketers are doing is they're turning their best customers, their brand advocate, into a virtual marketing force for their brands and their products. And so my book is chock full of stories about innovative marketers like Kim Johnston, the VP of Marketing at Parallels, a software company based in Renton, Washington, that's identifying their brand advocates. They've identified over 30,000 of them so far, and then giving these advocates tools to recommend Parallels. And in doing so, they're getting some unprecedented marketing results, like 30% sales conversions, which is about 15 to 20 times higher than traditional online conversion rates. So that's what my book is really about. Number one, it's about brand advocates, and number two, it's about marketers who are leveraging their brand advocates as a powerful marketing force.
Great. And what would you say are the top 3 lessons people can learn from your book?
Well, I think the first lesson is I think that companies and marketers would be surprised by how many advocates they have and how eager and willing those advocates are to recommend your company, brand, and products without being paid. Our real-world experience at Zuberance over the last 2 years has revealed a really shocking finding, and that is that on average, including both B2C and B2B brands, that about 50% of a company's customers are highly likely to recommend them. 50%. When you think about that, I mean, this sort of flies in the face of conventional wisdom, right? Because most companies think that maybe only 1%, 5%, or even 10% of their customers are highly likely to recommend them. But we've surveyed at Zuberance over 2 million business and consumer buyers over the last 2 years, and we found that about half of the customers of those companies are highly likely to recommend them. So that's sort of the top number one lesson, is that in the book you'll learn that that you have an advocate army, and if you're a company that has, say, 100,000 customers, 50,000 of them are highly likely to recommend you. And that's shocking and surprising, and it also gives you a sense of the opportunity that you have, the sizable opportunity that you have to create this advocate army. So that's surprise number one. The top 3 lesson is that, you've got more advocates than you think. The second thing that is sort of a top lesson is that those advocates are very willing to recommend you, but here's what's key. You really need to make it easy for advocates to recommend you by giving them the tools to recommend to their friends. And so the second lesson is, it's easy to get advocates to recommend you, but you've got to give them the tools to do that. And those tools have to be easy to use, fun to use. You need to give advocates help in recommending you, not paying or coaching them, by the way, but just giving them the tools and making those tools easy for them to use. That's the second top lesson. And I think the third top lesson is that something that really challenges this myth that you have to pay or give rewards to advocates to recommend you. And, at Zuberance, we have generated over 30 million brand advocate actions and prospect actions, and not a single advocate has ever received anything for this, not a cup, not a mug or a T-shirt or a badge or a banner or a discount or a coupon or anything like that. And so that's the third top lesson, is that the way to engage and encourage advocates to recommend you, and many are already recommending you now, is not to pay them. And if you start paying your advocates, it tarnishes the entire interaction and relationship. And as a consumer, if you find out that someone is recommending something to you because they're getting paid, you immediately devalue that recommendation. So that's the third of three top lessons, is that you should not pay or incent advocates to recommend you, but instead you should just make it easy for them by giving them the tools. And we find that about 30% of identified advocates quickly recommend you when you give them those tools.
Great. So what is your number one secret to word-of-mouth success?
Well, I think that in addition to everything we've talked about so far, the other secret to word-of-mouth success, at least when it comes to brand advocacy, is that this is not a one-time thing. It's not a one-time event or promotion. There are a lot of companies that will do a word-of-mouth campaign because as marketers, we tend to think in campaigns, or so they've got this campaign mentality. But I think the number one secret to word-of-mouth success is that word of mouth is a ongoing program and process. And just like other forms of marketing, that the value that you get from word of mouth marketing increases over time. And so if I could, encourage or inspire marketers to do anything with word of mouth, is that to not think about it as a short-term campaign. I mean, certainly within your ongoing program, you can have certain campaigns that are designed to generate word of mouth at certain points in that program. But I think the number one secret to it is to think of word-of-mouth marketing as an ongoing part of your marketing mix. And when it comes to advocacy, once you identify an advocate for your brand or product and you activate that advocate, that person will continue to recommend you for years. We certainly saw that at Apple, where I managed marketing programs at Apple for over 10 years. And that, there have been Apple advocates who have been recommending Apple since the days of the Apple IIe, and they still recommend Apple today. So that's key, is that think of word-of-mouth marketing not as a short-term promotion or campaign, but as an ongoing way to engage and energize your advocates.
Great. So what is your favorite word-of-mouth story of all time?
Well, I think that I've got two of them, actually, and I'll tell it one from the advocate standpoint and one from the brand standpoint. So my favorite word-of-mouth story of all time relates to a brand advocate, and it's an advocate named Starbucks Melody, a woman who goes by the name of Starbucks Melody. Her real name, by the way, is Melody Overton, and Melody is an attorney, and she lives in Seattle, and she goes by the name of Starbucks Melody. And she has a blog that celebrates her passion for all things Starbucks. She also has, obviously, Twitter, where she has thousands of Twitter followers. And Starbucks Melody is like a walking Starbucks encyclopedia. She knows more about Starbucks than most of its baristas. And she celebrates her passion and her advocacy for Starbucks by recommending Starbucks nonstop. She's like a one-person sales force for Starbucks. And by the way, her most exciting moment was a couple of years back when Starbucks unveiled their new logo. She got invited to headquarters where she met Howard Schultz, and she was one of only 3 consumers in the whole world that got the sneak peek at the new Starbucks logo. But, to me, Starbucks Melody is, she's an extreme brand advocate for Starbucks, but she's a symbol, really. She's a symbol for thousands and thousands of people who recommend Starbucks all the time to their friends. And Starbucks Melody is just sort of probably the most visible of those advocates. And so her advocacy of Starbucks is, to me, one of my favorite word-of-mouth stories, because she represents, what honest and authentic advocacy is all about, not paid advocacy. The second favorite word-of-mouth story of all time is from a company called Box. And Box is a super hot company. They provide a very cool service where you can upload your photos and files to Box, and people can collaborate with them in real time. And last fall, Box started to identify its advocates and energize them. And in only about 3 months, they identified over 100,000 Box advocates, and those Box advocates recommended Box over 250,000 times. And so Box is turning its advocates into this sustainable, powerful marketing force, and they're not paying any of these advocates to recommend them. And so my favorite word-of-mouth stories are about advocates themselves, and then about marketers who are recognizing the power of advocates and then finding more of these advocates and giving them those tools to tell their stories in a way that no marketer or no PR person or no ad agency ever could.
Those are both great stories. Well, thank you so much. That's all we have time for now, but you all can come to the wordofmouth.org crash course in Austin on May 10th to hear more from Rob and for one day of love, happiness, and word of mouth. Go to wordofmouth.org/crash course to register.